Hello everyone and welcome to Bardsung. I recently did an unboxing on this and we're going to do a little bit of a sample playtest here. This is not a how to play, just to be clear. This is me playing through the tutorialization in the rulebook, which takes the form of, it gives you a combat tutorial, which I've already got set up and we'll talk more about as we go. And then it gives you a small taste of the exploration system of the game. With some cards I've already got set up here, which includes a few fights, introduces a couple of new enemy types, whereas the first fight is just your most basic enemy. And I'm doing this both to see how I feel about the game as we learn to play it together, and gauge interest in seeing more as it goes on. Now there probably will be a lot of cuts while I check rules and whatnot. It's surprisingly complicated outside of the combat system, which actually seems pretty basic. We'll talk a little bit about how a player is set up, and it is also worth noting I'm using a couple of the stretch goal characters, but if you're going verbatim by the rulebook, it gives you 3 specific characters to use. I'm only using one of those, but they're basically the same. They fall into categories of like damage dealer, warrior, rogue, mage, tank, etc. That kind of thing. So let's go over that, and then we'll jump into combat. So this is the first of my 3 characters. She is called Fire Soul, and she's a very short pyromaniac. Essentially, she's a fire-focused mage, and this is how a character board looks for Bardsung. You get these containers with the core box. I've set up a little bit differently to how you're supposed to. Your abilities are supposed to be in a pile here, but I find that awkward to look at them, so I'm using what I believe is the track for counting your wounds. So that's not what you're supposed to do, but personally I find it easier to keep track of. So on the left and right, I've got their basic starting equipment. You have that just for show mostly. I think there's a couple of characters whose basic starting gear does something. All the characters I'm using here, their basic gear does nothing. But there is a reason to have it. They have little diamonds in the bottom right of their card, and that indicates how much they can be upgraded by, similar to like the Dark Souls board game. If you played that, you can get things you attach to your weapon to make them better. But as standard, they're not doing anything. So you have your 6 stats. It's something I don't remember offhand what each one is, but it's like strength, speed, intelligence, defense, charisma, etc. And these govern your stats. And characters have plus bonuses to certain stats, which in turn help them use their abilities, which are here. And you know which ones they have bonuses to by flipping over their card, and that tells you to go +2 to this stat, +1 to this stat. It also tells you their basic 3 starting skills, 2 of which are active attacking abilities, 1 of which is a passive. The tutorial tells you to ignore the passives, for the record. I'm still going to have them here, but it tells you to ignore them because it's trying to integrate you into it slowly, so it's not telling you everything to start with. And it also tells you their starting equipment on the bottom of the card, and you flip it over here. That's how much they move for a single move action. She moves 2. She can attack 2 hexes away. She gets 0 extra defense when blocking. She takes 4 wounds before going down, and her damage roll is a d6. And again, we'll cover all that in combat. She starts with Ember, Fireball, Flame Wall, and each character you bring has a fate token. So again, you're not really supposed to keep them here because every character could use multiple, but I'm just putting them here for ease of remembering how many I've used, because you can replenish them in battle. Some skills require you to use up your fate token. You can also use it to empower an attack, which gives you a d4 extra to try and hit a target number to actually land a hit on an enemy. We'll move on to the next character and then talk about the anatomy of a skill card. So next in my group is Forge Warden. He's going to be my tank. He's the most impressive of the player character miniatures in my opinion. He's very focused on defense, but also charisma, because charisma is also like leadership and whatnot. It's not just literally like a bard stat. But we'll talk about, you can see his stats are slightly different to Fire Soul, but we'll talk about one of his skills. Let's look at Mechanica Strike. So this is the basic layout of a skill card. I'll try and get that in focus there. It means it's a melee attack. That's the stat that governs the attack, which means you might have a bonus to it. So for instance, when he's rolling with this attack, he would get +2 because he has +2 to the charisma stat. If you land just a normal hit, you read that and that tells you what it does. In this case, that is just, it does a wound. If it gets a crit, you do the second line, which is 1 hit, and it recovers a fate if there's a used fate for the fight. Down here is how much XP you have to spend on the card to level it up. If you level it up, you flip it over, get a stronger version. For doing the entire tutorial, you get 3 XP incidentally, which is not a lot, and then it recommends if you're using the base characters what you should spend it on. again for the expansion characters, which Fire Soul and Forge Warden are. It doesn't have suggestions for them, so I'll just be picking stuff. I'm not sure what yet, but let's go to the character that is from the core box. Alright, let's get started with the battle. This is a pub brawl that's broken out, essentially, I think, based on the lore in the book. We have Nightfeather here, we have Fire Soul here, we have Forge Warden up here, and then for each character you're using, you spawn a single Brigand, whose card I showed off before. A character can do two things in their turn. They can move, attack, etc., but you can't use the same skill more than once. So in the marching order, Forge Warden is first, so I'm going to take a turn with him, and his first action is going to be to move, because he has to be on the same tile. He's got an attack range of 0. So he's going to move, for a move action he's allowed to move 2, so he can go 1, 2. And the zones are a little hard to see on the tiles. There's natural lines. This is essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, including the middle. Different zones. It does have a reference that shows you where they are. So that's his first action, and then for his other action he's going to attack the Brigand with the Mechanica Strike card that I showed off before, which is hopefully kind of in focus. Well, I showed it off before if not. So he's doing that, which means we're rolling a d20, and we are looking for a 9 or better, but we apply any modifiers that the card tells us to. So in this case we're adding +2 to this roll, so we really need a 6, by which I mean a 7, I can count. So we got a 16, which means it was successful. Then we have to roll his damage die, which is a d6. And remember, we've already succeeded. This is purely checking whether or not it's a crit. And I rolled a 2 off camera, which means it's not a crit. So we just do what it says for a hit. It does 1 wound to the Brigand. They need 2 to die, so he's still very much alive. Now, do we have little wound tokens here somewhere? Yes we do. We'll just use this for now just to say he's taken 1 wound. And then the Brigands get to go, and they all activate as a group. You complete 1 and then move on to the next. We'll do the one that's on Forge Warden's square, because he does the most basic thing on the Ferocious AI card, which is just, if you're on the zone with a hero, hit them. So when an enemy attacks, they just succeed. What you roll for is your defense, and again you're trying to meet or equal or exceed their target number, adding on any bonus defense. Forge Warden gets +3 to this roll for his defense, which isn't enough. He actually takes a wound, because 2 + 3 is 5, doesn't meet the 9, which is the TN of the Brigand. And in that case, you draw. I don't actually remember if I've shuffled these cards, so let me just quickly shuffle them. You draw a wound card and keep it on your person. Now they do have text on the other side, we don't need to worry about that at this point. I think it introduces that once you're actually playing a campaign, but it tells you not to worry about it in the tutorial, so I'm not gonna. And that's the first wound Forge Warden's taken. He has 4 hits left. The other 2 Brigands, they're not on the same square as an enemy, so they would go down the card and charge into a square with an unengaged hero, and then an engaged hero. These 2 are unengaged, so he would charge there. Oh, how much do they move? They move 2. So they prioritise unengaged targets, meaning that they're both stuck in there. Let me check if a charge also gives them a free attack. Yep, I'm glad I checked. Page 22. Charge. The enemy moves up to its speed towards the hero and then attacks as described. So both of those are getting an attack action. We'll do the one on Fire Soul first. She has no bonus to her defense at all, so she's just trying to get a 9 or above. She did. She's fine. And then Nightfeather has a +1 bonus, so he needs an 8 or above. He is also fine. So they both took no damage. And next in marching order is Fire Soul. She could have attacked from range, but instead she's just going to stay where she is and try and burn them. I think she's going to use Fireball. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, let's do Fireball as our first action against the Brigand on her square. So this uses, I think that's the intelligence stat, which is +2 to this, so she needs a 7 or above. She rolled a 12, I knocked it to an 11 by accident, it was a 12. So then we roll for damage, see if it's a crit or a hit. It is a crit. And a crit in this case, which is, again, I apologise if it's not fully in focus, a crit is 2 wounds. So she just outright killed him. So this Brigand is dead. Now she has another action left and she has range. So she'll do her other ability, which is Ember. It's not as good. It's very similar, but not as good. Still governed by the same stat, so she gets +2 to this roll. 17, which is fine. Is it a hit or a crit? It's just a hit, which is just as well, because I don't remember what being on fire does in this game, which is what it would have done if it crit. So because, oh actually no, I do have to look it up, because a hit doesn't actually do any damage, it just does the flame icon. So let me check what that does. Alright, an enemy who is set on fire suffers a wound at the end of the turn, and then you discard the Ember token, or Fire token, which might not matter as long as Nightfeather kills the Brigand on his square. So it's over to him. He's the last one for the round. Let's try his Piercing Strike, which is this card here. Again, apologies if not in focus fully, they're very small. If the target is the only enemy in the zone, yep, add +2 to the damage roll. So he has to hit first. This is governed by his, what I presume is dexterity. It's +2 to this roll. He made it, so +2 to this roll. He did indeed get a crit, which in this case is 2 wounds, so he's just killed it. And then I believe that last icon is dodge, so he's allowed to move to an adjacent square, which he will. He'll move into the center. This Brigand is dead, so the fact he's on fire no longer matters. He doesn't have the range to do anything else. He has another action. Is there a reason to move on to the same square that there's already an enemy on? Yeah, there is attacks of advantage and disadvantage when you move away from enemies, but enemies don't have that same effect. But either way, it puts him close enough to be a threat next turn, and that would take us to the end of the round. So let me double check what you do when a round ends. Alright, again, because the tutorial simplifies things, it says for the end phase, there's a lot more to the end phase, but for the combat tutorial, the heroes only need to shuffle the initiative cards to deal a new marching order. Make sure that each card is moved back to an unexhausted orientation. That's because you're supposed to like turn them on their side when you've activated, if you can't keep track of basic movements. But I don't think that's necessary. So again, they haven't got the same back, so it's easy to tell where the enemy is, but I'm just going to look away, I guess. And we'll say it's flip, and that's the order. So Nightfeather's going first, then Fire Soul, then Forward Ward, and then the Brigand. I didn't do that on purpose, I was genuinely looking away. But we begin a new round, and Nightfeather is just going to do that exact same attack, the Piercing Strike, and he's going to try and cut him. That's not good enough. That is not good enough. What's his other attack? His other attack is a taunt. What does this do? If this attack hits, after resolving the effects, the target can be placed in the same zone as the hero. Oh, it has range on it, I guess. It can, if it gets a crit, do damage, but only if it gets a crit. So, sure, for his other action, he'll try and do that. Oh, wow, okay, no, never mind, he's done nothing. Fire Soul, she'll chuck a fireball from where she is, because she's got range 2. 9 is already good enough, plus her bonus, that is good enough. Rolling for damage on the fireball. It's just a normal hit, which is 1 wound, but that Brigand already had 1 wound, so it is dead. So that's the combat tutorial 1. Let me just see, I've got the page open here, what it says, because then it moves on to the exploration tutorial. But is there any end of battle stuff it wants me to do right now? Let's see. Completing the combat tutorial. Don't read any further until you've beaten the tutorial. All the rules you need are here. When you've been successful, turn to the next page to continue your adventure. Okay, so now I need to set up the exploration. We're not just in a single room, we're going to be searching through a corridor or two and a couple of rooms, so I'll do that and we'll be back. Alright, I have set up the next tutorial, which is a small dungeon crawl involving just a few rooms. Normally the way a delve works in this game is you start on this edge, sometimes in the corner if it's a long exploration, and you go from the long corner to here. Normally though you're just going from one end of the board to the other in whatever fashion you see fit, based on searching... That's supposed to be closed, there we go. Based on searching through rooms and corridors, your goal is just to get to the far side of the table, and that counts you as having done that particular area, because a chapter is broken into numerous delves, essentially. And you get a new action called an explore action, and I have the page open here. Previously the action all took place on a single tile, but in order to progress, heroes will have to strike out and explore their surroundings. The explore action counts towards a hero's action limit per turn, just like a move or usability, which I've been calling attack. When a hero makes an explore action, they follow 3 steps below in order. Draw and resolve a dungeon card, and draw and resolve an aspect card, and then shuffle the marching order. Okay, so I'm not sure how you decide then what order you activate your characters in currently if there's no marching order until you've searched a room. I'm going to choose Forward Warden because he's the tank. Oh, also it told you to remove all wound cards, so he's back to full health. So his first action then is an explore action, and we're just going to open this door here. Now the way it works as to whether or not you draw a corridor card or a door card is you just do the opposite of what you're in. If you're in a room, you draw a corridor. If you're in a corridor, you draw a room. Simple as that. So because we're in a room, I have to draw a corridor, of which the tutorial gives you exactly one, and then you look at the card. And now together we work out, now if you have 4 or more characters, you put the enemies that are in the circle. If you don't have 4 or more characters, you ignore the circles. Other than that though, you've got a Bardsung symbol, which is important for eventually finding the staircase out, and then these symbols denote enemy types. Now hopefully the tutorial lists what those are, and I'll get those set up. It tells you which way you can enter, tells you which way you can leave, and there is a combat here. So I'll get that set up. We'll put it next to the board there because I'm not going to go sideways, and we'll get their cards out as well. Alright, we have set up the passage, and it took me a little while to find the 2 or the 1x2 that had the doors where it was supposed to have. The symbols are on the next couple of pages, incidentally, if you lose them like I did. So we have a brute immediately, and then we have just a little brigand. Now, the rules for what you do when you complete an Explorer said you draw 1 aspect card and then you draw a challenge card. The section immediately after that says you have to do the card that it says on the bottom right. That indicates whether it's a battle card or a challenge card. In this case it's a battle one. So I don't know if you still do the challenge card. It sounds like you don't. So I'm not gonna. We'll just draw the card that corresponds to that, because it's the thing that leads me to believe that is the tutorial only gives you 1 of each card, so that seems to make the most sense to me. So we'll pull the battle card, which is this one, flip it over and see what it says. Disciplined foes. Non-wandering monster enemies add +1 to their TN while they're in the same zone as 1 or more other enemies. So they're 1 harder to hit while they're, I'll put this over here as well actually, while they're in the same square as 1 or more enemies. Okay. The other thing to note, the brute is a little bit different to the brigands. 1, their TN is harder, and they have that little symbol there, which, let's bring it a bit closer, in the bottom right there of the 8. That means that against physical attacks, you count the attack as having disadvantage. What that means is you roll twice, or you roll 2 d20s, you pick the lowest result out of the 2. He has a toughness of 6, so it's very hard to crit him, and if you hit him, wound him twice, he doesn't die, he flips his card, and his card changes slightly. He becomes more ferocious. On this side, he's disciplined, and he has a defensive line ability, which is this enemy and other enemies in the same zone can't suffer more than 1 wound from a single attack, so he's defending people. So that's in the marching order, along with the brigand card and my team. I have to do this now, I think, so I'm just going to quickly shuffle them. Although Forge Warden technically should still have 1 more action before this happens. Well, actually no, because it says shuffle the marching order at the last step of the Explorer step, so presumably it doesn't matter. So, the Brigand's going first. We know how they work because we just saw it. Oh, then the Brute is going, that's perfect. And then Fire Soul, and then Night Feather. Just push these to one side, I know you can't see them. Night Feather, and then my tank is going last. That's perfect. That's just peachy. Okay. Well, we know what the Brigand wants to do. He wants to initiate a charge, but they only move 2, so he's not going to get into... Oh no, actually, he totally will. Because that's the staircase is 1 zone. So he'll go 1, 2, and he'll attack Forge Warden. So let's see if he defends. He successfully defends, so it doesn't matter. Now, the Brute's a little bit different. I need to look at his card. I also put his card on the wrong side. Just realised that's something you've got to keep track of. So, he is the Disciplined AI card when he's not annoyed. He's going to hit a hero in the same zone first, can't do that. Charge into an engaged zone, he can do that because he's movement 2. But then yeah, that's basically the same as the Ferocious one, honestly. So he's going to charge in. We're having a brawl in here apparently. A little bit messy with all the models there. He's going to smack Forge Warden. And he hits him, because even with the +3 that is good enough. So again, he just gets a wound. And he gets pushed as well, actually. He also pushes on a miss. I guess he'll just get pushed over here then. I presume I get to choose. So he'll get pushed to the side so we can see what's happening a bit better. So then Fire Soul gets to go. She can shoot from where she is. She is going to fireball the Brigand to try and one-shot him, because we saw that last time. So let's just roll for attack. +2 to this roll. That's not good enough. She missed. In that case, she'll do her Ember on the Brute. Try and set him on fire. 7. He's what, 1 harder because of his buff, which would be 9. But she's getting +2 to this, so she still hits it. But she would need a 6 to crit him. No. So she just does the normal hit, which is setting him on fire. So the Brute's on fire, which means he's taking a wound at the end of the turn. So that's something, I guess. She's done. It's over to Night Feather. He will try and Piercing Strike the Brigand, because he could potentially do 2 damage with that. +2 to this roll as well. That's a 20, basically. Oh, I forgot to roll for disadvantage against him, but it wasn't a crit anyway, so it should be okay. That hit. We're looking for a crit against the Brigand. A 2's not good enough, it's just a hit, which does no damage. Oh, that's rough. It does no damage, but he's allowed to dodge. He's going to dodge to this tile over here. Leave poor Fire Soul right there. That sucks. That was his first action. Is there any reason to taunt? If he crits, it would do 1 damage. Sure. Oh, actually no, now he can't because he dodged away. Never mind. Forge Warden will activate. Let's do his skill that requires a fate token. It's called Crusader Stride. Before this attack is resolved, you can be placed in an adjacent zone. So presumably that means he's allowed to walk back in. It costs him 1 of the 3 fate the party has. And then he's going to hit the Brigand. Because I want a Brigand to die. He hits him. He would have added on his Charisma. Didn't need it. He did also actually crit him, which does 1 wound and pushes. So we're going to push him back through the door here. Dealt 1 wound to him. And then he still has 1 action left. He shall use his Mechanica Strike on the Brute, I guess. Oh, so he's rolling for disadvantage. I'm remembering this time. Roll 2, pick the worst. The worst is a 9, so he still hits him with his bonus of 2 Charisma. And he did actually crit him, because he got a 6. What does it do on a crit? He replenishes that fate he just used and he dealt a wound. That's pretty good. So we're at the end of the round now, which means I'm not going to bother putting that wound on, because the Ember procs on him, does the second wound to him. So what happens now is you flip his card and he starts acting different. And then 2 more wounds will kill him. That is the end of the round though, so it's time to shuffle the cards. Right, giving you a better angle there. I'm looking away while I shuffle the cards. Face up this time, we're just going to go 1, 2, 3. I almost dropped 1. Draw. Oh dear, the Brute is going first. The Brute's going first. Forge Warden is second. Night Feather is third. Then Fire Soul and the Brigand last. So on his other side, he also just turns ferocious, so he's just going to smack Forge Warden. Oh, he's no longer on fire. So, does Forge Warden block? +3 to this roll, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, because his TN's become 10 on this side, and he's getting that bonus as well, so no. He takes a second wound. Ow. That's 2 wounds out of the 5 on Forge Warden. He's the tank though, that's what he's for. And then, Forge Warden's activating. He will use... He's going to attack the Brute twice. I'm just debating which one to use first. He'll use the one that costs Fate first, because he could replenish it on the second. Rolling 2, picking the worst, because he's at disadvantage. The worst would be 4. He misses. And same for his Mechanica Strike. 4s? It's nothing but 4s all the way down. Well, he's done then. Night Feather is not in the same tile. Let's see. He's going to have to move. Actually, you know what? He's going to go try and kill the... Actually, there's a thing. If he has to move through a tile that has an enemy, he's not starting on it. So I'm not sure if he gets an attack of opportunity or not. I'm going to assume not. So he's going to go after the Brigand. Because as far as I'm aware, attacks of opportunity only happen if you're escaping a square that has an enemy on it, not passing through one. Could absolutely be wrong, for the record. Not sure. Rolling for attack with his Piercing Strike. That's good enough because it's a 9 plus his 2 bonus, minus the 1 from the debuff. Did he crit though? He needs to crit to make it do anything. He did actually crit. It means it does 2 wounds. The Brigand is down. I'm just going to remove his card from the tract because there was only 1 of them. And that removes a threat. and he's done because he did his 2 actions. Fire Soul is going to do the same thing she did last turn, starting with her Fireball. She gets to roll just the 1 die because it's not a physical attack, it's a magic attack. She hits him, looking for that crit. She did actually crit him. Now on this side of his card, is he still protected against crits? No, his defensive line buff has vanished. So he actually did take the crit, and the crit on Fireball is 2 wounds. So he is down, and he is gone, and that means we've completed the encounter, but everybody stays where they are, and we work from that. Now as for who goes next, I presume you shuffle a marching order. I guess we'll see as we get to the next card. As far as I can tell, you shuffle a new marching order just with your characters as a new round starts while you're exploring. So 1, 2, actually I can do it the other way. No I can't because all the backs are different for these characters. You have to look away while shuffling, that's so silly. Alright, Fire Soul's first, and then Night Feather, and then Forge Warden. So Fire Soul's first. She is going to move. She can move 2 zones, which is 1, 2. Puts her there. And then for her other action, she'll open the door and do an Explore. Because we're in a corridor, we have to open. Also, I just noticed my camera's at a slight Batman angle. Apologies for that. Is that a bit better? We have to draw a room card. The tutorial only gives you 1 room card, so we're getting this whether we like it or not. And I bet this has a question mark in the bottom right. Yep. So, oh, there's not even any combat in this one. There's just an exit or a portcullis. Okay, well I'll find the tile and we'll be back in a second. Alright, I have the room set up. I'm not sure what the portcullis means. It doesn't say in the book. Presumably it's connected to the challenge we have to do, because this is the last card it gives you for the tutorial. So we're going to flip this over. Wounded Hobgoblins. Let me pull this over here so I can read it. Several bandaged hobgoblins lay across the ground groaning in pain. Place D4 corpse tokens in the current tile. Let's quickly see how many. Roll a D4. You don't have to roll these D4s, you just go by the number that's at the top. 1. There's a single 1. And distribute them across the zones as evenly as possible. If a hero moves into the same zone as a corpse token, they make a target number 10 charisma action. If they fail, replace the corpse token in that zone with a brigand. They begin with 1 wound on them. Okay, I have no idea where corpse tokens are, so let's just illustrate that with a heart like that, and he actually can easily be walked around. I presume the portcullis just means the end of the tutorial because it doesn't give you any more room exploration cards. The other thing to mention, there is a echo system, I think it's called, when you're normally delving, which is a reason to close doors behind you because there's this echo that follows you, and if it gets to you it spawns a wandering monster, which are generally tougher and can be quite annoying. For instance, I have one right here. This is an example of a wandering monster from the Kickstarter stretch goals you can include in chapter 1 of the campaign book, which is just a ravaged pack of wolves, and we take a look at their card. They're pretty tough. Target number of 12. They've got a toughness of 5. They do die if they take 2 wounds, to be fair, but they're hard to hit, and they do bleed in their attacks. So potentially dangerous stuff like that. As far as I can tell, that's us completed the tutorial. I've got the book here, because the next page says preparing for the campaign. Completing the exploration tutorial. When the tile is placed overlapping the crease printed on the map, which is talking about the crease at the top of the map that you can't quite see, it doesn't give you enough cards to get that far, so I don't know what it's talking about in that regard, but whatever. A hero in the same zone as the stairs token, maybe that's what it means by the portcullis. It means there's stairs, but I would assume it means a locked door, but I don't know. When a hero escapes, remove their model from the playing area. Whenever heroes escape, they win the tutorial. Yeah, it doesn't give you enough rooms to get to the far end, so I'm just going to say I got out, and the portcullis means stairs in this instance, but nothing in the tutorial tells me that. It's not very clear. So it then moves on to telling you how to set up for the actual playing of the campaign book, which is essentially a mix of what we've seen here: combat, room exploration, event cards, essentially. Wandering monsters. The only difference is you have resources that, if I pull out, you might be able to see them. Yeah, right at the top of the table, along the very top here, you have 3 potions, 3 campfires, 3 tools, and 3 something or others, and you can use them as the campaign progresses to like heal yourself between fights, rest, and whatnot. Oh, there were healing potions, firewood, toolkits, and charms. So you would normally have them, and you get 3 XP for finishing the tutorial, which you can spend on upgrading. I am not going to commit to anything yet until I read more of the rules, because then we move into advanced hero rules about like using fate tokens to when you're trying to hit a TN, you get a D4 thrown in. So for instance, that wouldn't be 8, that would be 9. Can I only roll 1s on a D4? Apparently. Serious wounds are when you have a normal wound, kind of like in Nemesis. If you get a serious wound, you take a wound card, you flip it over, and you get the debuff that's on it, for whatever that says. Let's see, abilities. Some abilities are passive, so yeah, then it tells you to integrate your passives. So for instance, Forward Warden's passive is called Bastion. If Forward Warden uses an Explore action, they add +1 to their defense in the following round. That would have been helpful, because I'm pretty sure he took damage upon doing that Explore. I should have read that, although it doesn't tell you to use them in this tutorial, to be fair. Then it talks about some enemies have stuff that happens if they miss. We already know that, because the Brute does. He pushes on a miss. Resting and checkpoints, that's if you fail in battle. Special conditions, which we saw burn as a special condition, for instance. And then it moves on to treasure cards, which I don't think is relevant. I'm just looking to see if there's anything about that portcullis symbol on the map tile. Oh, doors, yes. Some portals have a door symbol indicating heroes should place a door token on them. I thought they all had doors. Maybe they've not. Huh. I honestly thought they were all supposed to have doors similar to like Cursed City, for instance. I guess they are just connected but without doors, so that's how the Echo can chase you faster in the full game. Doors have an open side and a closed side. Doors are always placed in the playing area with the open side showing. Models can move between tiles using a portal with an open door without penalty. Can't dodge through it or be pushed through it. If a hero makes an explore action while in the same zone as a closed door, flip it to the open side. A hero in the same zone as a door can spend an action to close it. Alright, so I did do something wrong there. I'm glad I read on. There's not doors, there's just open passageways. You just choose to explore through them. And then sometimes there's doors that start open, but you can close them to keep the Echo from chasing you as easily in the full game. That makes it a little bit more awkward. It doesn't look as like diegetic the way the tiles flow into each other. But I can understand the difference and why they would do it. Yeah, and then it talks about the Echo token in the full game, which I'll give a brief hint of there. That's the Echo token, it follows you, that kind of thing. So that was a little taste of how Bardsung plays. Let me know what you think about it, and if you would like to see me tackle the campaign. It would be a long project, probably done over a long period of time. There's a lot of table space required for Bardsung. This is like a 3x3 area of a 6x4 table taken up, and you can't even see half the stuff I've got to the side. So it is a bit of an endeavour. I don't think I have the time to paint the miniatures for it. Maybe the heroes at the very least, I suppose. But let me know what you think, and we might see some more in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Do point out anything I did wrong. I was just trying, but keep in mind the tutorial leaves out some rules on purpose. And I'll see you next time. It's that for now.